Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zone you're at. We got a good group coming together again for another webinar that is provided by GSU-CIBER on behalf of the MSI Cyber Consortium. Well, this is Cüneyt Evirgen. I'm the faculty director at GSU-CIBER, and I'm very pleased to be together with Halil Kınacı, whom I'm going to introduce in a couple of minutes, to talk about very interesting topic about some industries that are really not talked about too much, but that are so significant and so peculiar in many ways. But before getting started on that, I'd like to say a special welcome to our first-time attendees to our webinars. And currently, we are the attendance is increasing as we're moving along, and we will be reaching about 50 attendees by the end of the webinar. And the webinars we had started back in April 2020, and so far we've exceeded 80, coming close to 90 such webinars on different topics of teaching, research, and or conversations with business executives. So today's webinar will be an example where we will be learning from a seasoned executive, a professional from some leading industries. Just a quick note that all our webinars are recorded, and the recordings will be available after a small edit a few days following the webinar date. And when you exit, we will have a very short survey, just 5 questions, and feedback is always very useful so that we can work on future webinar topics or contents based on your feedback that you would share with us. Well, everyone will be muted during the webinar, but please do come up with your reflections, sharings, or questions to Mr. Kınacı as we proceed through the webinar by using the Q&A or the chat functions on Zoom. So today's topic reads, Reflections on Global Supply Chain Challenges in Highly Technical and Regulated Industries, right? I mean, global supply chain being a topic of interest for many years. Its significance is pretty apparent. But when we look at it within the lens of highly technical and regulated industries, who could we learn more from but Mr. Halil Kınacı, who has more than 25 years of experience, having worked in industries such as aerospace, defense, industrial automotive that are extremely regulated and highly technical, that poses specific challenges, I guess, in terms of supply chain management. Halil Kınacı is currently the Director of Global Supply Chain and has responsibility for program management and new product introduction globally at Woodward Inc. So and he, in addition to being an industrial engineer, by training, he's got an MS degree in industrial systems engineering and an MBA. So without further ado, Halil Bey, welcome again, and thank you so much for being with us. And I would like to kick off our talk by asking you, please, would you describe what Woodward does and what's your view on defining supply chains in conjunction with that? So the floor is yours, please.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the introductions. Before I start, I'd like to thank Dr. Evirgen, as well as Dr. Çavuşgil and Paula, Jamaica, as well as the GSU-CIBER team for inviting me, as well as giving me an opportunity to share my experiences, knowledge, and observations. Really pleasure to be here. This will be a good, informative session in these highly regulated industries, and look forward to your comments, questions, and hope that I can contribute to your learning after this session. With that said, I think it is important to understand the scale of who we are, and then our answers will be defined around that. Woodward is about $5.5 billion market cap, about $2.3 billion revenue, and we are a public company listed in NASDAQ. One of the interesting facts is that Woodward has been founded more than 150 years ago. And we have been in existence around in key technologies, which I will speak for, and currently have about 7,300 employees around the globe. And our business is around 60% aerospace and 40% industrial. And in the aerospace, we serve commercial, defense, business jets, rotorcraft, And in the industrial segments, we are in power generation, transportation, and gas markets. When we say transportation, I mean heavy transportation, not necessarily the vehicles we use every day on the roads. What we do is we design and manufacture energy control systems, solutions, and components with innovative flow, combustion, as well as electrical and motion control systems. So in every design, as well as the production we are pushing boundaries in the world, and we are contributing to all the end users, major end users from Boeing, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, Caterpillar, Cummins, Weichai, and we make their business better every day with the products we ship. So when we get into supply chain, I think it is important to understand where our answers are coming from. And these industries that we are operating on are highly controlled, highly technical, as well as regulated from many different factors. As we read and hear about supply chain on the newspaper, on TV, whether it's the high tech, whether it's common goods that we purchase, I think it is important to consider how and who we serve and where our products are used. And my answers will be mainly geared towards those markets and industries. So before I start, I'd like to just really recap here two things that I found. Google defines supply chain as connected systems and organizations, functions, activities, informations, and resources designed to source, produce, and move goods from point A to point B. Another interesting definition coming from Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport in UK, they define getting the right product to right quantity at the right condition, right place, right time to right customer at the right price. Though both of these definitions are not wrong and they are mainly accurate. However, I think they do not capture the complexity in the supply chain environment. We have to consider the technologies we are using, economical conditions for the goods and services we are providing as well as we are purchasing, right? We also have to consider the changes in our expectations in terms of regulatory, legal, environmental, social, and political changes. Especially when you consider our industries, those factors become much more important in how we make the decisions on a daily basis. So depending on the markets you're serving, I always look at, for supply chain, you have to understand the markets and the key factors that are critical that makes or breaks the product, right? Geopolitical drivers and or factor. We are hearing a lot about the war and trade barriers, etc. So especially when you consider our industries that are long-term, it takes a long time to develop a product and service the product in the market for 20, 30, 40 years. You have to make those decisions in a bigger scale, and you cannot just act very quickly at the spur of the moment. So in the decision-making process, which we're going to expand around, we got to have different view and how we go at it, right? Additional factor in supply chain, especially in ours, is that think about the demand and supply, how the demand and supply changes with a major event like COVID, or with a major event like, for example, Boeing 737 product line being grounded, right? Versus the demand factors coming from China towards using natural gas, etc., and the fluctuation coming with it. So all of these factors have to come into our decision-making process as to how we source the product, who we go to, where we go to, etc. So with that said, I'd say welcome to supply chain, right? All of these challenges become opportunities for us to really think differently and come up with unique solutions that have not been used or developed in the past. And that's where the opportunities are. That's where the goodness in supply chain are. And we're going to talk a little bit about later how we make sourcing decisions. But at the end of the day, we look for partners who are going to make us better or add value to what we do around these factors in the supply chain arena. So I hope this gives a little bit background of who we are and what environment we operate in and how we make decisions in the global scale.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a great intro, Halil Bey. And from your description, it's apparent that we will be hearing some peculiar aspects of supply chain because of the industries you operate in. And like, I mean, we all fly, so I do realize that the planes that we fly in obviously use some of your technology. So at the end of the day, you're at the farther end, closer to the source of the B2B industry. Even you can touch the consumers through the passenger flights, at least. Yeah. And with that, then you mentioned about differences of customers, differences of suppliers. So I would like to start with the supply side, because at one point, obviously, you do source materials, you do source some ingredients, maybe some semi-finished goods, and the supplier represents a key component of the supply chain for manufacturers like yourselves, where you are the customer, but essentially you're a supplier to some other customer at the end of the day. So with that interconnectedness, what are the key traits that you'd be looking for in selecting key supplier partners to work with?
I think we have to start from the customer point of view, right? And then key stakeholders' point of view. We exist because of our customers, because of our key stakeholders, and it is in our constitution, we really have 5 key stakeholders: customers, shareholders, members, and suppliers, as well as our community. So when we make decisions, we have to really consider all of these areas. And I think it is important to start with that. Our key principle, and it has been, I've been with the company for about 17 years, and I'll say that in a very proud way, that we really operate in an ethical, honest way with complete transparency and openness with our customers, as well as with our partners. We always consider, if you were to be presented in the front page of the newspaper, how would that reflect on our company? And we are really proud to represent it in a way that we would like to see it on the TV or on the newspaper, right? So that's how we operate. I think that's important to really understand. From our customer point of view, the customers that I have mentioned, they are all demanding, right? They are all world-class customers. They require speed, they require accuracy, they require reliable partners that they can trust us. So how do you make this, right? Especially when you think about the longevity of the design and development cycle in these industries, it takes a long time. They want solutions, and they will continue to go to the suppliers or partners that they can trust, because they don't know everything, especially in technologies that we own and we develop and we design. We have much more better and deeper understanding where we can contribute to them. It is important for us to say that, obviously, as you mentioned, in the planes, right? We have a lot of components on those planes that everyone on the call are using or getting on, as well as the power generation plants, as well as oil and gas industries, as I mentioned. They're all using our products. So we have to make sure our products are reliable. When there is a demand, it has to operate, and it has to operate in a perfect way. We cannot jeopardize their intent for why they are using our customers, right? So that's important. With that said, similarly, suppliers do exist because we need their help and services, right? Everyone buys, everyone purchases, everyone issues purchase orders. But I think one of the mottos that we operate with is that we want to be preferred partner for our suppliers. And when you think about the technologies we develop and design, as we are pushing boundaries, we are always finding ourselves to need more technical requirements, tighter technical requirements, whether it's sealing, whether it's the flow rate, whether it's the sensing, whether it's the motor, we're always making it smaller, better. So it is important that we go to the partners who think of, well, if I have a limited resource or capacity or a product or a service, I want to give it to Woodward first. So we want to be that preferred customer for our suppliers. It's easy to say, but it is hard to do. And it is something we have to do every day with every member who work in our company, right? So, and when and how we make decisions is that if you look at supply chain and manufacturing, as well as the technology from 1990s, 2000s, 2010s, and now we're into 2020s, right? The pace of the change is significant in terms of the expectations from the consumer, expectations from the customer, the customers that we supply to, and that trickles down. So we look for partners who can actually evolve with the change and not only become better partner for us, as well as they can develop themselves, evolve in the technologies they are using, machining they are using, the talent they are retaining, right? So that's another critical factor for us. As we look at sourcing decisions, we also have to think about the requirements. If it is a defense, it's gonna be local, right? If it is, we try to be in the market, for the market, and what happens is we try to contain the entire supply chain for the end customer within the region. And that helps us reduce the risk that might come from those factors that I've mentioned earlier, whether it's political, geopolitical, environmental, regulatory, etc. It helps us, put boundaries around that operation. And just like many companies, we also have operation methodologies in supply chain. We have categories for the parts that we purchase or the components or the systems we purchase. We have categorization for our suppliers. And at the end of the day, we look for those partners who can help us get better, increase value in what we offer, and oftentimes help us become better team when we talk to our customers or present ourselves in what we can do. So I think with all of that, it tells you how complex decision-making can get in our environment. Of course, I didn't really get deep into the technological requirements, but when you think about the products we produce, it goes into the cockpit, it goes into the wings as you see them moving, it goes into the engine. We have close to, I think, 40 to 50 different systems on the engine, whether it's a defense, whether it's commercial. When you think about those power generation plants using our controllers, valves, actuators, the technological requirements are really, really important that we meet and make sure that we can deliver it consistently, time after time, over the duration of the product, where it's 20, 30, 40. We have products out there that have been in operations for 60, 70 years. Can you believe that?
Wow.
And they're still being used. So you cannot change them, right? You have to make sure it's consistent throughout that duration. So I think that sums it up how we make the decision.
Yeah. Halil Bey, you said something that kind of is very, very interesting. We always hear the term preferred supplier, that companies try to be the preferred supplier, right? But you said that you want to be the preferred customer for your suppliers. I'm flip-flopping the traditional perspective,
Yes.
like the first thing that comes to mind. That's very, very important. I mean, with that note, could you expand on how do you see that as a differentiation, and whether exclusivity of your suppliers working with you has anything to do with it, or is it a criteria, or is it valid?
Yeah. So actually, thanks for asking that. Being in the industry for a long, long time, I've seen many events, many issues, challenges that we've solved over time for our customers, right? I will start saying this: we do have preferred suppliers and partners for sure.
Yeah.
But just because you have them doesn't really mean much unless you're a preferred customer for them. Especially today, right? When we hear on the newspaper that people do not have labor, people cannot get machinery, you cannot get parts for your dishwasher, for your TV, for your car, etc., etc. So in that tight environment, you want to be that preferred customer. And how do you make it? There is not a straight answer that I can tell you go do these things unless you work on it day after day over the years with those partners and demonstrate the fact that you are that partner. To me, that's kind of like Toyota manufacturing way, Toyota manufacturing systems. I've spent a lot of time in Japan and in automotive. Toyota would open up their plants. You can come and look at it, but how you do it is really is critical, and it is important as well as difficult. So we work on it every day. We try to be the person that we want to see in front of us, and that is trust, honesty, openness, and being there when they need help, and being open and transparent to say that, hey, this is where we need help, and developing that partnership environment in my mind.
All right, great. Thank you. We'll continue on, but there's a question from the audience.
Sure.
That I want to address to you. The question reads, could you address the challenges of sourcing components such as chips and pharmaceuticals inside the United States?
Yeah, so this is where, even though it's unique in the industries that we operate in, we are operating, however, it is not unique, and we are not immune from these challenges, right? We use electronic components quite a bit, especially on our electronic controllers, or any kind of electromechanical device. We are putting a lot of focus into our design and engineering teams to develop alternative components, as well as working with our customers where we can perhaps descale it if possible. But using alternative components is one area we are heavily investing. Not only that, we are also heavily investing into product development cycle and trying to be better at predicting where we can have challenges, looking back, understanding what had happened and predicting what could happen, and making sure that in those new designs, we have alternative components, alternative ways to produce that product so that we have flexibility.
That's great. Well, I mean, let's shift gears towards the customer a bit more at this point, Halil Bey.
Sure.
Obviously, no business can survive without the customers, and you're trying to be there. And I understand that in your industries, the number of customers, the number of potential customers is very limited in terms of number of companies that could be your customers, right? So that's a narrower market in terms of the possible candidates. So within that, I suspect that there are some peculiarities in what you do to connect and work with those customers. So how do companies operating in such industries, such as aerospace, defense, highly industrial markets, how do they attract customers? How do they try to impact demand? And how does this impact how you operate? How do you respond to that?
Sure. So when you look at these markets and industries we serve, underlying thought is end customers who are making the products are looking for those trusting partners. And as they push technologies, they want to be able to go to the ones that they feel and can trust that they will be that trustable partner, right? So I will also say we have good competitors in the market. good competition makes everyone better, right? We know it. It's an open economy. It's a typical good market and efficient market, right? So that said, we capitalize on decades of sustained technological superiority and delivering value for our customers as well as the brand. We have the pedigree. We know how and where we can continue to push boundaries in the technology development. We invest compared to the industries and the companies who operate in our marketplace. We invest significantly into R&D and product development. That's our bread and butter. And as customers want solutions, sometimes they don't even know what they want. And that's where we can offer alternative designs, alternative opportunities. And this is where we continue to develop that trust with them over time, right? And in our world, it takes a long time. And it also is very quick to damage that brand reputation. So I will not say that we are problem free. We have a lot of challenges, but I always say that, and with our sales folks, those challenges are opportunities for us. One, hope we don't want to have problems, but when we do, we attack them in a superior way to make sure our customers continue to feel they can trust us. So having said that, we take ownership of the issues and hold everyone accountable through those areas. And with that demonstrated pedigree, we keep coming back with the solutions, right? I've mentioned our customers earlier, whether it's Boeing, Airbus, Gulfstream, Lockheed, Northrop, SpaceX, Blue Origin, General Electric, Pratt Whitney, Caterpillar, Cummins, so these are all leading OEMs, and everyone on the call use their products on a daily basis, right? Maintaining our competitive position as well as trusted partner position takes a long time. This is why I said earlier, we've been in existence for more than 150 years with the same name. It is very difficult to find a company with that, right?
Absolutely.
And considering that product longevity, as I mentioned, whether it's 20 years or 60 years, we have to do that consistently over time. We have to source product consistently over time. We have to service our customers consistently over time. And we focus on a lot on platform development. So when we develop a platform, that sets a foundation for us to come up with new product quickly, which is also a common practice in automotive and electronics, as you know. But I think we do that well. But if I could give a couple of examples, I think, so that folks can relate to, in the past 10 years, with the sustainability, greener energy, et cetera, and we're going to come to that topic a little bit later on, but the products we've been developing, mainly using whether it's diesel fuel on the power gen or oil and gas, in the past 10 years, we've been converting them to dual fuel, triple fuel, to natural gas or biofuel, right? So we are staying ahead of the requirements to help our customers and give them opportunities. We have been improving on our digital technologies, and consider our products being on the aircraft or on the wind turbine on top of the tower, or where it's in the power generation plant, they all need maintenance. In the good old days, you had to stop the operation, take the product out, service it, maintain it, and put it back. This is costly. You don't want to stop these end products, whether it's an aircraft, whether it's a plant. You want to keep operating, right? That's where the money is. So we are developing leading edge technologies digitally, where we can see product life and we can schedule the maintenance to help our customers. So that's a significant benefit for them, right? It's just like the oil gauge or the service recommendation coming up in your vehicle. Hey, your service time is coming up, versus a signal that comes up, you need to get your oil changed. You wouldn't want that, and we wouldn't want that, right? So I think that's really becoming important for us. We have also start working on newer technologies, whether it's electrical, whether it's hydrogen fuel, use of hydrogen fuel with some of our key customers. And we are looking at those products in perhaps 2030s, maybe even later. So that tells you how early we engage with the product development before the typical consumer sees. And with all that said, it takes time, investment into technology, engineering, as well as customers to develop that pedigree and become that partner, as well as enable us to sustain our customers.
Thank you, Halil Bey. I mean, a lot of questions pop up. Obviously, there are lots of questions piling up through the audience as well.
Sure.
But something I want to highlight out to what your descriptions is. At one point, you're developing the latest technology at the high end because of the industry. So coming up with new products continuously in a way. And at the same time, you also mentioned that some of your technologies are still being used for the last 60, 70 years.
Yes.
So it's like two parallel universes kind of happening at the same time, you know?
Yes.
And as we're talking about the huge disruption that's happening in the global business world, sometimes we think we're kind of pulled towards like everything's going to change. I mean, whatever we've been doing, we'll forget all about it and everything's going to change. We have to change. So maybe your example kind of made me think that, well, I mean, things are changing for sure. But there are still some things that will keep its place and its significance, which will put a balance in terms of the supplier networks globally. What would be your take on that, with that kind of an opening?
Yeah. It's interesting that you've asked this question. I'll come from a couple of different angles. To go back to the previous question, developing products and technology is one thing, but we also have to show the customer that we are actually doing that, not just talking about it, right? How do you do that? In the past, I'd say 6 to 8 years, we've built 4 brand new plants, brand new. And we have been investing into latest testing facilities, various testing facilities in the company. So when the customers come and see that you are investing, these are brand new 4 walls manufacturing facilities. They are designed and laid out with the world-class architects. It gives everyone a comfort that we do what we say we are going to do, right? And that is not only for customers, but also for our suppliers, so they can see that. But in the meantime, you got to service everything else. So product rationalization becomes very important for us. But I will also say that demand and supply management is very critical part of our operations. We've been investing into those teams significantly, especially with the beginning of COVID and lately, I will say that. We are investing into talent into those areas. We have to make sure that we are really staying close to our customers' needs. Sometimes we have to predict our customer needs before they actually know that, right? So that we call it being sticky, okay? That stickiness is really, really important. And when you think about, just like the water, you drop the little piece of stone and the rings just keep going. And the small changes in the front end can have huge impacts in the lower tiers of the supply chain, especially when we think about the tight labor, tight raw material. It puts a lot of challenge on our team, I will say that, and they've been really working hard at it in the past couple of years. The fires, we've had a couple of fires, and especially when you have a sole source, how do you, a fire in a casting company or forging company can shut you down for almost a whole year. You got to have extraordinary speed to take care of that problem. Or when you have a little chemical being used on one of our seals that has to seal perfectly in the engine, what do you do with that, right? So I will say that it's not an easy task. And I will also say we have a lot of SKUs that we have to manage through, but our product rationalization through ABC methodologies, as well as how we align our operations to have the right forecasting, right inventories, as well as right product stocking strategies for those A materials, B materials, C materials becomes very, very important. And I'll just leave it at that. We are investing quite a bit into our forecast and forecast accuracy, SIOP processes, supply, inventory planning, operations planning processes across the company. And we'll continue to invest these areas. I will not say that we are perfect. We are in the midst of the challenges where it's the front end all the way to the lower tiers. But I'll say that, with the years of experiences being in the industry, we have a decent way of managing it, and we'll continue to do so.
Well, absolutely, you must be. I mean, being over so many years in operation and still being at that point. Well, I mean, you mentioned a couple of kind of crisis cases that you may come across and you need to be prepared for. Well, there's a question from the audience in relation to, it's a general question, but you can take it with a particular angle. The question is, how is the supply chain crisis, which, I mean, we've had a couple, right, globally, not necessarily in your industry specifics, but we've had a lot of these things over the last couple of years. How is this crisis changing domestic manufacturing strategies, do you think?
As I said earlier, we are in region for region. It's easy to say, but that is really our strategy. So that product that protects the product going to region, and you can understand and relate to the challenges as well as the issues within the region, within the country, right? So that's one thing. That's one strategy that we deploy. The second one is, as I had mentioned earlier about product categorization, we have a lot of product that are commodity type products. You can source it from multiple areas. And those are easier. You can get alternatives fairly quickly and validate them if necessary. But I will say that we are not a